Hi, welcome back to our tutorial here for Committees on Ministry in the Penn Central Conference. I'm Reverend Nora Foust, one of the Associate Conference Ministers, and I'm so glad you have chosen this particular video to talk about licensed ministerial standing and lay ministerial standing. Let's jump right in. Licensed ministry is something that has not been continued by the new manual on ministry, but that doesn't mean that there aren't still licensed ministers across the denomination. We here in Penn Central are not issuing new licenses, but we are continuing to recognize licenses that were granted before the new manual. Licensed ministry authorizes an individual to perform specific duties in a designated local church for a designated period of time. This is how the United Church of Christ bylaws define licensed ministry. In practice, many associations expanded this designation from a single church to full associations for supply work. That is harder as we move forward just because of the new parameters around authorization in the current manual on ministry, but it is a conversation to have. Sacramental privileges must be specified for licensed ministers as it is not given in the definition. This is considered to be a supervised lay ministry by the Committee on Ministry or by a designated supervisor who works on their behalf. It is also an authorization level that does need to meet annually with the Committee on Ministry, and they have to affirm their call. Their consistory has to affirm that the call is still exists, and meet with the committee for that purpose. There should be yearly continuing education requirements, and again, it is not defined in the current manual on ministry, but many committees across the church continue to issue new licenses while we do not. We have transitioned here in Penn Central Conference to lay ministerial standing, which is a temporary, accountable, covenantal relationship among the association, the lay member, and the local church of the United Church of Christ. For lay ministerial standing, you do need a three-way covenant in place that details all the expectations. This applies to a single setting. It is recommended to be renewed no more than 7 times for a period of 7 years. There should be an assigned supervisor and regular meetings that occur with lay ministerial standing. As with licensed ministry, there should be yearly meetings with the Committee on Ministry, and the Committee on Ministry may suggest continuing education based on feedback from the supervisor or feedback from consistories. As with licensed ministry, this does not include sacramental privileges, voice or vote, unless that is specified in the three-way covenant or in the way that associations define this standing. The process for lay ministerial standing works similarly to how license would have been granted in the past. A local church must request lay ministerial standing on behalf of the member in discernment who is seeking it, or the person they have called. Because lay ministerial standing is a stopping point, not a career in ministry, the person being granted lay ministerial standing does start out as a member in discernment, because there needs to be this season of discernment as to whether or not they are called to this one specific church for a season of ministry, or if they are called to lifelong ministry and the whole of the church. And if it's lifelong ministry to the whole of the church, then they'll need to be developing a plan with their Committee on Ministry to move toward ordination. But if it is simply a season in a church, then it can be renewed beyond that 7 years that I mentioned with the last slide, but it is still limited to place and time. The candidate completes an application, and this includes some self-disclosure statements. There needs to be a criminal background check. We can do the same criminal background check that we do for our authorized ministers through the profile portal available once they're accepted as a member in discernment. That we do need to get a psychological assessment done, just like we would any other member in discernment, have an interview with the Committee on Ministry to go over the position description and the expectations that are there, the expectations of the ministerial code, as well as that expectation of discernment that I mentioned earlier. Is this clearly a seasonal or situational call, or is this a discernment? Is this a lifelong call, and discernment for ordination is appropriate? And if it is determined that it is a seasonal call, their status as a member in discernment might end, while their continuation of lay ministerial standing would go on. And again, it can be renewed beyond the 7 years that I mentioned, as long as the discernment has been done to determine that it is for this singular church. If someone should take lay ministerial standing, end their member in discernment status because it's only for this church, and then want to change churches or search for a call in another church, then clearly we're beginning to look at that call that needs to be discerning a path toward ordination. So there's lay ministerial standing and how that is being lived by us here in Penn Central, lived into by us here in Penn Central. If you have any questions, I encourage you to take a look at the manual, to take a look at the materials that are available on the Penn Central Google Drive for Committee on Ministry members, or to ask me about it. Let's have a discussion about lay ministerial standing. I know there are a lot of feelings about it out there, so let's talk through it. Hope you have a great day. Take care.